for them. And now it is my honor to introduce you to Nadia Roumani, the director of the American Muslim Civic Leadership Institute. She is the principal of Roumani Consulting, LLC, a New York-based consulting practice that manages multi-stakeholder international projects and advises organizations engaged in innovative social change. In addition to her work at the AMCLI, Nadia is a consultant program officer for the Doris Duke Foundation for Islamic Arts Building Bridges program, a senior advisor to the United Nations Alliance of Civilizations, and a research associate at CRCC here at USC. Nadia has consulted for the World Bank, UNDP, Ashoka Innovators for the Public, Oxfam America, the Brookings Institution, the Four Freedoms Fund, the Carnegie Corporation, and the Rockefeller Brothers Fund. She also served as the interim director for the Women Leaders Intercultural Forum and is a senior associate with the Carnegie Council on Ethics and International Affairs, where she co-launched the Global Policy Innovations Program. Between 2000 and 2004, Nadia received her master's degree from Columbia University's School of International and Public Affairs and her bachelor's degree in economics and IR from Stanford University. We'll talk about an overachiever. I'm not sure how she finds the time to do all this, but please join me in welcoming Nadia Roumani.
Thank you very much. I wasn't expecting my bio. Thank you. Assalamu alaikum. We're delighted you could join us today for the first commencement of the American Muslim Civic Leadership Institute. The Institute was established in 2008 to empower existing young Muslim civic leaders who are working towards full civic participation of Muslims in American public life. And they're working not just on issues relevant to the Muslim community, but they're working on issues relevant to the broader American public. I'm going to take a step back and just give you a better understanding of how we got here today. Which began back in 2004. We did several research projects I was involved with, one of which was with USC, going across the country, talking to Muslim American young adults from LA, San Francisco, Chicago, Detroit, DC, all over the country, really. And many of the people we spoke to were leaders, were Muslim leaders, young Muslim leaders engaged in civic issues at the local, state, and national level. And all of them are serving their communities and trying to increase their community's engagement in public life. And what was interesting is what we heard was the same narrative. It was a similar story over and over, no matter what they were talking about. They were often working on different issues, but what they were talking about was a similar narrative. They were exhausted. They were trying to both protect and defend their community from outside pressures, at the same time negotiating issues within their communities. They were overextended, they felt isolated in their work, they lacked sufficient mentors and role models, and they were being asked to lead and take on responsibility when they didn't always feel that they had sufficient training. But they were still inspired, and they were still driven by what they were doing, and they really believed in what they were doing. So as a result, Brie Laskoda from CRCC at USC and Adina Legovich from MPAC, we sat around many a time talking about what could we think about doing. And we brought together 22 Muslim civic leaders in 2006, so this was 3 years ago, in the summer, to really discuss what could be done. And these people were all nominated from within their community. They were all doing civic work. And I think the difference from this meeting was just we were bringing them together to really define the issues on their own terms. It wasn't convened by anyone, for anyone. It was just them, for them. There was no set agenda. And what came out of that, and it was a really honest space with some difficult conversations, but a lot of discussion of the needs of this community and some possible ways to tackle them. And one night when they were prioritizing the needs, one of the main needs came out as a leadership development program, something that would invest in this community of leaders and would help give them the tools and the skills they would need to go out and do the work they're doing in a slightly better way. And what they asked for was a place for people to gain the skills they needed, that they could better articulate civic engagement from an Islamic context, and that they could develop a network of people like-minded across the country that they could work with. So a steering committee came out of that with 7 people. Again, Adina, Brie, and Gibran Bouayed, who's also here, were all a part of that steering committee. And from that, AMCLI was born. And so what is AMCLI? It's a center, we spent 2 years between 2006 and 2008 building it, and then we launched it this past year. And so what it is a program housed at the USC Center for Religion and Civic Culture, working in partnership with Georgetown University's Al-Walid bin Talal Center for Muslim Christian Understanding. And it's essentially a 6-month training program where we bring 20 fellows who are nominated from across the country together 3 times over a 6-month period, and each time for 4 days for a very intense program, as many of the fellows will tell you, with not enough sleep and a lot of sessions and some difficult conversations. And so we met this year, first time November in DC, January in San Francisco, and this time in LA. And the fellows are coming from across the country, and the first cohort was 7 cities with the largest Muslim communities. So it was San Francisco, LA, Chicago, Detroit, Dallas-Fort Worth, Texas, other parts of Texas included, New York, and DC. And it was a deliberate process about how to move this community to their learning edge, how to instill in them the work that they're trying to do, and sometimes pushing them outside of their learning edge to a place where they really feel like they're gaining skills both personally, organizationally, and as a community. There are 4 main parts to AMCLI. The first part is essentially developing a history and a narrative of Muslim civic participation and articulating the root of that work. And that essentially comes from 2 parts. One part is working with scholars across the U.S. to try and define what civic engagement means from an Islamic context. What does it mean for our community to be civically engaged? What are the parameters of that engagement? How do we inspire and encourage our communities to be more civically engaged? In LA, every session we're usually joined by a couple scholars. In LA, we were joined by Imam Zaid Shakir, Sheikh Yasser Fazaga, and Dr. Maher Hattout. We're also compiling case studies from fellows of the successes in their community of some of their civic engagement work, but also some of the challenges, to try and really understand what are some of the real challenges that we're facing as a community that's trying to participate more fully in American public life. The second area is the education and training on practical skills, everything from community mobilizing, advocacy, storytelling. There's a whole range of skills that we've addressed. And a list of speakers are all included at the back, and you can kind of see a range of some of the schedules, see who we brought. Introducing fellows, the third area is introducing fellows to non-Muslim organizations and community leaders from whom they can learn and hopefully engage in the future. We were joined by Reverend Everett Bell from the Regional Congregation and Neighborhood Organization just the other day, who ran us through a really great program. And facilitating the development of national networks of Muslim civic leaders and facilitating work amongst them. So, one of our facilitators, Everett, told us on Thursday, he said, what is a leader who leads his community out to action or out to a rally? And he turns around and there's no one there. He said he's simply a man taking a walk. And for that, we wanted to ensure through programs like AMCLI that our community is not riddled with people out taking a walk, but that we're supporting a generation of civic leaders who are rooted in their communities and are working for social change. They differ from self-appointed leaders who claim to speak on behalf of the Muslim community because they represent leaders who are they're providing services to their communities. Our fellows today, who you'll meet shortly, and those we hope to support in the future, may not be the voices or faces, they may not be the voices you hear on the radio or faces you see on television, often because they're too busy serving in their communities. But you'll find them working away on a range of topics, either overtime in food banks or trying to set up a food bank. You'll see them staying up late at nights to finish a legal brief to defend the rights of Muslims and non-Muslims alike, and trying to motivate their community to vote, are just some of the issues some of the fellows might work on. And we're delighted to honor some of these leaders here today as our AMCLI fellows, and also as some of our community's unsung heroes.